Hello and welcome to another cheeky crypto show. I've branded us up, Chris, JB. Hopefully you're okay with the branding. For why not? Let's go full send. Let's go live stream in style. So welcome to the Cheeky Show. Welcome to another crazy Bitcoin day. It has been a pretty epic one so far. Some interesting kind of developments and all that kind of wonderful stuff. So in today's stream, we will be taking a look at Bitcoin. We'll do that in a moment. We'll take a look at what's going on with BTC. We'll touch on some of the most recent events within the crypto space. Hopefully, Chris will. Oh, I didn't know it did that, but yeah, there you go. We'll do. Yeah, I probably need to figure out a better layout for sharing the chat, because I think that's one thing I totally forgot to do. But
The other thing
nonetheless, yeah, we'll.
the other thing you forgot to do was give
Uh,
me a screen to be able to share. Am I
What do you
here or
mean?
not here? Well,
Yeah, you're here.
there's no. Yeah, but I've got no screen that I can share.
Oh no.
You haven't
It's
set
it's
one
a
up for me.
different layout. You can share one of those
Oh.
later. There's nothing else to do there. Yeah, wouldn't worry about that. Don't worry about that. We'll sort that out.
I am worrying
There's
about
nothing
that.
like these problems going. But no, welcome to the stream. Let us know where you're watching from and what platform. I always like to get a good idea as to kind of where the viewers are in the world as they kind of dial in to today's show. Lots to kind of discuss. Once we kind of go through Bitcoin's technical analysis, we'll jump into a little bit of the crypto events and what's going on in the latest news, and then hopefully we'll have some time to jump in some altcoin stuff and into the chat and find out what you guys are up to as well, and answer a few of your questions. So let's kick things off, shall we? With what's going on with Bitcoin, because JB, it's been a bit of a move, right?
Yeah, it's been very nice indeed. We've obviously seen, quite a pump today. I mean, do we
Yeah.
say the line? Do we actually say the words? As
I don't know. Go
expected.
for it. As expected.
So, yeah, I had a good look at Bitcoin this morning for the members down in Discord, really zooming out in the structures, planning what was kind of going out there. So yeah, it's getting into the correct level, I feel. We are getting close to reversal. Glad I didn't go on a short. Glad I am long. Quite healthily long right now. Let's actually have a look at that. Yeah, let's bring that one up on screen. It'll be this one here, I believe. Nick, can you drag that one over? I can't seem to drag it.
What, you want me to activate your screen, yeah?
Yeah, put my screen on.
That one
So
there.
we got
There you
into a
go.
long on Bitcoin actually during the Super Bowl last night. And we have accelerated that long, looking for a bit of a breakout here to continue for its price action. And it's actually bugging out Smart Money Concept that's moving up that viciously. So overall, looking for a continuation on the BitGet perpetual chart, looking at that $51,021.10. The structure that I'm mapping out here, that of course would be the impulsive level for there. We will then see a retrace and a continuation to the upside. So overall, yeah, quite happy about this pump indeed. So yeah, check out the Discord, guys. It's obviously in that Trader Elite section monitoring the moves that are going on there. So yeah, very happy with those movements indeed.
Yeah, they're very, very good. They're very healthy. And trading on BitGet, of course, because, why not? It's the go-to platform for leverage-based trading, as I often say on the channel. Yeah, the link is over there, as JB is saying. Oh, actually, the link's down below. It's down below, yeah. Let's go ahead and let's jump into some technical analysis on BTC, right? So I went through this morning where we're talking about the potential for breakout to the upside, and we were talking about double top. Now we've moved past the double top situation, which was 48,969, and we continue to kind of push up more. It doesn't invalidate the idea of what was going on this morning. We still are going to be looking for a retracement, but it does have a little bit more strength to the upside, as JB was saying here. Now, the breakout of our trend line here is giving us some confidence. So you can see here that we had resistance in our upper trend line, and we've had a clean break. So we'll be looking for a back test on the trend line, looking for that to basically turn into support. What was resistance turn to support. So this is a good place for Bitcoin, and we are going to still be targeting out, as we were talking about this morning, that upper trend line on our ascending wedge from a bigger macro piece. If you zoom out even further, you can see here we're talking about this one last night, and we are still kind of talking about that $52,000 to $54,000 range up there that we'll be targeting. But it won't be straight lines. I expect us to actually be kind of, still thinking about some kind of like mini correction here for a moment, rallying back up and probably bouncing around just a little bit as we kind of have this journey to the upside and continue. So we're kind of looking for something like this to occur. And once that has unfolded, we'll then be looking for bigger retracements. And there is some interesting developments here as well for BTC. On a kind of bigger scale. Now, it's a bit too soon to be really confident on it, but if we were to kind of consider this upper trend line as initially our resistance, and we do get rejected here and come back down to our lower trend line again, this one at the very low side, this would actually allow us to look at this potentially as a bit of a head and shoulder pattern. I'm going to just briefly draw this in so you guys can see it. I would look for something to this effect. I'm going to adjust that back in so you can see it here. So this being our neckline at the top with a slanted inverted head and shoulder pattern with a potential break to the upside, basically leaving this trend line. Okay, so we'd see here that we'd kind of move up, this being over this side, somewhere around here. Okay, we'll move up to our trend line. We'll get rejected, come back down to the low trend line, and then we'll come back up, test this, and then we'll look for that break, which will be that next kind of big bullish movement to take us out of this range. Now, this obviously is early stages. There's no guarantees of that because the ascending wedge pattern in itself is bearish. So again, we'll see whether or not we can hold the support level. Now, this is a rather steep upper trend line that is immensely fragile because of how steep it is. It's very unusual for these things to hold out for all that long. So we want to be quite mindful that there's a high probability that the ascending wedge, the bearish pattern, is the most likely scenario to unfold. But there's a few underlying variables here that we also need to kind of consider when it comes to the fundamental side as to why Bitcoin is probably pushing up and obviously pulling back down. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that later in the stream when we probably jump into some of the on-chain analysis and all that kind of stuff for BTC. And because there are some interesting developments with why we are seeing this push to the upside, yet at the same time, we do not have a lot of those how do I say it, a lot of the right metrics to see a continuation or sustained push to the upside. So it's great to see the green. It's great to kind of be in a real bullish environment. It's fantastic for the FOMO, right? Lots of happy, gleeful people. There's some fantastic trades. This side, there, over there. That one right there. Loads of fantastic trades going on with some great profit. But I do kind of want to say that if you're in profit, it's never a bad idea to be locking in some of those gains, or at least moving your stop loss. So your stop loss is in green and you can slowly work your way up and, make some money in this space, right? Because that's what it is all about. So for Bitcoin here, it's great to kind of see this breakout, and it's great to kind of think about where it could be heading. And of course, as JB was saying earlier here, we are potentially looking at this with a bigger move to the upside before we kind of call off and have that upper movement there. We are looking at that as a potential 5-wave structure from an Elliott wave into that kind of stuff. From here at the moment, you can see the previous area of resistance is also broken through. So this area of previous supply has now turned into an area of demand. Okay, so what I mean by that is where price was historically being rejected over here, now when price comes back down, this will be the opposite. It will be an area of buying pressure instead, because they now see it as a breakthrough situation. So this now basically means that if we do revisit this area, there's going to be buy orders in this range to take advantage of this, as this was previous resistance turned to support or previous supply turned to demand. Okay, so again, an interesting kind of thing to be looking out for. I still see us with some of these additional interesting areas as well, previous areas of breakthrough that we never retested. So again, looking at that 45.5 to 45,879. So that's going to be an interesting point of reference as well as our swing low. With this move to the upside being a 5-wave or potential 5-wave, it's not yet confirmed at the moment. It could still be zigzag territory or double zigzags and stuff like that. But if we can kind of get up to the worlds of 1.618 Fibonacci extension levels, then we can start thinking of this as a 5-wave movement in itself. It's not yet confirmed, but for now, it could just be zigzags or double zigzags. Okay, so keeping that in mind, This move to the upside, it would actually put an end to the idea of a three-wave structure to the downside. So, we don't look at things like that anymore, unless, of course, this is to avoid the 1.618 area. If we can avoid 1.618, the bears are probably going to be looking at trying to take this back down lower than 38K. And the bulls really are rallying it, which doesn't appear to be. There's not a lot of spot volume here, but there are some imbalances in the supply demand elements. So if if the bulls can rally, quotations, this up to our 1.618, which for the record, I will go ahead and show you guys on here as well, so we can kind of see that approximately 51,628. JB, you probably have that number a little bit more accurate than I do right there, but it's approximately $51,628. If we can hit that with this move to the upside without any overlapping structures, then we'll be in a pretty strong position to kind of think of that as a wave 3, basically preventing us from any kind of expanding expanding flat corrections or irregular flat corrections, if I can speak today. So, we are looking for, basically, if we just comfortably said 52K on the wave 3, we'll be in a pretty sweet spot. But we think we are in a wave 3 of a wave 3 from Elliott Wave. And I don't want to kind of overcomplicate things, keep it nice and simple for you guys in the chat, of which you can let me know what your price predictions are on this move to the upside after this breakout. Are we looking at pushing up higher? Or do you think this is now likely to see reversals now that liquidity and all those juicy stop losses on the short positions have been captured at that particular range? Very, very interesting kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over this, I think, as well. And can I actually move that? Yes, I can. Handy stuff. I'm going to switch up my screen here for a second, and I'm going to bring up our data for a second, he says. If I can actually find the right one, I'm going to go with that and share it and turn it on. There we go. So on-chain analysis for BTC, right? So one of the things that we were talking about within the price action is we're seeing some of the how do I articulate it? We're seeing the price move upwards, but we're not really seeing the demand that goes alongside it. So if we actually jump into our analysis here for the on-chain metrics, we can actually see some interesting kind of developments. And I want to focus in on just a couple of things. I won't go into too much detail here because we kind of went through this the other day. But if we take a look at the Bitcoin whales that have over 1,000 Bitcoin, we can see that these guys have been accumulating a little bit. They're not massive amounts, but they've been accumulating a little bit. Currently, there's 2,065 wallets. Now, I'm going to zoom in on our chart here, and I'm just going to focus in on where we were down here around kind of, December of 2022. There were 2,044. And if we just scoot back a little ways, we're at the same kind of levels that we were at in early December of 2022. Okay, so we've moved up a little bit in terms of these whale wallets, but it's not a huge significant amount that we're able to kind of say that we're, exceeding the amount of whales that existed in the bear market, because we're not. But it has been an interesting kind of move, right? So we can see here some whales have been accumulating, or wallets anyway, that have over 1,000 Bitcoin. And the same kind of story appears here for 10,000 Bitcoin or more. Okay, some accumulation has been going on, or wallets with over 10,000 Bitcoin have been growing, right? In the last 2 months, it's 5.71% up, right? And what's really interesting about this is when we actually start to take into consideration what's going on at the exchange level as well, right? And we can see in the last 30 days, 88,000 Bitcoin has gone away from the exchanges. Okay, so at the same time as seeing those wallet counts increasing, we're also seeing the exchanges lose BTC. Okay, this is essentially meaning that there's less Bitcoin on the exchanges for people to buy. So when we have a reasonable amount of demand coming in for Bitcoin, we're able to see the imbalance in the supply demand metrics when there's insufficient supply to deal with that demand. Thus, the price goes up higher because people can command a higher price for BTC based on the fact that there isn't much out there, right? So supply demand, these are pretty much fundamental basics, right? And so what we have seen here is the larger size wallets here, the 100,000, the 10,000 and the 1,000 BTC wallets actually growing as the shrinkage from exchanges. Now, the question becomes, are these new wallets that are just being, created due to ETFs. It's unlikely because that's going to Bitcoin custody. But it does make you wonder who's pulling off the Bitcoin from the exchanges in order to create these imbalances, because it's happening at only really these two levels. We start jumping down into more the day traders, and you can see that actually a lot of these guys are selling their Bitcoin. So 100 Bitcoin or more, those wallets are on the decrease. Your high net worth individuals also on the decrease, right? They're actually selling off their assets here. So we know that the kind of medium kind of investors, 10 Bitcoin or more, 100 Bitcoin or more, they're taking their profits off the table. But we are seeing the 1,000 Bitcoin holders and the 10,000 Bitcoin holders actually grow. And that is incredibly interesting. It's more interesting specifically because we see the price action for BTC changing in line with that, right? So let me go ahead and bring up my price charts here and bring that into view. Let me turn that on. There we go. So as price has been moving up here, it's been moving up in line with supply shrinking off of the exchanges. Now, if I bring up our data, Canify says he can, but he can't. So where is the volume? I've lost the volume, JB. Oh, no. No, actually, no, I haven't. You know what it is? It's that I've got a drawing tool on.
Yeah,
that's it.
right click your mouse.
I just know, not clicking the right buttons there. Bring the volume in here. You can see that the volumes are still decreasing as price is pushing upwards. Now, if I take this and zoom out even further, you can see that these volumes over the last few months are significantly lower than where they were previously, right? So we know that the volume profiles are not in the best of positions and price is still moving upwards. In order to achieve this, you have to, I mean, I can zoom out of this chart. You can really see the scale of this thing, right? In order for price to continue pushing up like this, we have to see the supply shrink to basically deal with the decrease in the demand, that being the volume. So what's really interesting to me is, trying to think about why this is happening is one thing, but who is potentially behind these kind of, decreasing volumes whilst the price is pushing up, or trying to push the price upwards whilst that volume is decreasing. And so that kind of opens up, the world of kind of speculation, because no one really has any kind of clear indication on this, but you can, of course, speculate as to kind of why the price action is moving upwards and who is potentially behind the withdrawals from the exchanges. Now, I'm going to throw this out there as, a discussion point, I guess, and you can let me know in the live chat. And you guys can also add your 2 cents into this, which is it could be the likes of FTX and Genesis looking to basically make it harder for price to be suppressed or for price to push down, right? By kind of controlling the flow of assets on and off the exchanges and making things less available. Now, those are only 2 platforms that we're aware of that are going through liquidation processes. And it might not be those, just kind of throw them out there as the 2 most probably prominent names in the space. But I wouldn't put it past struggling platforms to basically make it really, really difficult to suppress the price of Bitcoin. Now, we do have obviously the ETFs. They're fueling some of the buy pressure here. But really, the sell pressure is being easily met by that buy pressure, which basically means that there's not really a lot of selling pressure for Bitcoin at the moment. And, we are seeing the price move upwards, meaning that people can command more for those assets. And the 2 platforms that really spring to mind are FTX and Genesis, because they are going through that liquidation process. Now, there's only a half a dozen more that will also be going through the same process, that will be heavily incentivized to see the price action higher rather than lower. So it's interesting because there isn't really a lot of volume to be pushing it higher, and there's not really a lot of volume to push it down lower. And so that kind of demand element for BTC at the moment is literally just being surfaced by a decreasing supply, and therefore price continues to kind of rally up. And obviously this is also compounded by these S&P 500, the stock market, after Jerome and the Fed are basically being just undecisive by not making any decisions, right? And as a result of that, it's kind of fueled the stock market to be a little bit more bullish. That's obviously then making Bitcoin a little bit more bullish. But what we are seeing a very clear sign of is that essentially there isn't any really a lot of new money coming in here. Money's rolling around. We're not seeing the alts go completely crazy in line with Bitcoin. And I'll let JB probably talk a little bit more about that later in the stream if he wants to. But ultimately, what we're seeing here is a buoyant stock market, a buoyant Bitcoin market, being fueled really from insufficient supply of BTC and not really a lot of additional new money coming into the space. And again, we can take a look at other factors outside of crypto as well. Chris often talks about, debt at all-time highs, savings at all-time lows, housing crisis, Evergrande, all the way through to regional banking crises and so forth. There's a lot of things to be discussing, lots of things that in the macro world of economics that could be causing some kind of disruption to this space in a very quick amount of time. So it's great to have the green in the market, guys, but I'm not so confident on sustained growth for BTC. JB, anything you want to add?
Well, we obviously had our members AMA earlier today, and we did kind of dive into this quite deeply. Now, you touched on earlier the moves that Bitcoin has made most recently in relation to the moves that altcoins have made. Now, we could argue, and I think it is becoming more and more relevant to think about this as an argument, maybe not just yet, but Bitcoin's becoming more and more centralized. I should have put my phone on mute. I do apologize. Bitcoin is now becoming more and more centralized due to who is holding it, the ETFs and such. And it was quite interesting to realize the people who are in this space but don't quite understand the ETFs. It is worth researching. Having the ETF doesn't actually hold a physical Bitcoin, it's holding a share and such. So understanding the difference there is going to change a lot of people's narrative on the space. I don't think a lot of people actually realize that the ETFs don't physically hold the Bitcoin when you invest in the ETF. Regardless, I've totally went off on a tangent there. The moves that Bitcoin has made up, from that pump up from around about, what was it, 15K? Well, altcoins have not done the same kind of return. If we quickly share off this screen here, Nick, if you want to do the honors and switch that one over for me. Yeah. The movement I've seen here for Bitcoin, this is obviously a weekly chart. Well, we have seen a rally for Bitcoin of 222%, which is great. But when we consider this move to the upside in relation to the previous all-time high at $69,000, very nice for some, well, we're very close to, touching up towards that all-time high. Then if we come back down and look at an altcoin, we'll do the same scenario we did this morning for our members, and we look at Cardano's ADA. Well, on that same kind of rally, you would be expecting ADA to be up towards, well, let's call it that $2 level, there or thereabouts. So we can argue that altcoins are lagging behind and such, but in my opinion, we just are not seeing the same volume, the same movements in altcoins that we are seeing in the likes of Bitcoin and such. So the drive there is behind Bitcoin, and I think we will see something very similar with Ethereum once that's approved. Then we could go down the argument of Chainlink or Solana or whatever, when they then have potential ETFs approved. Well, there's something huge that will happen in this space, and it will catch many people off guard. Now, if we come back down, and if I drag up the Solana chart, if I could find it on this screen here, well, we can see a massive difference here with Solana's price action. From the low we've seen on the 26th of December 2022, that $8 low, well, we can see a massive difference here. Solana in itself has brought its level back up towards there, but can we argue that Solana is perhaps one of the next to have an ETF approved? There's a lot of moving targets here. I think possibly the best way to articulate the way these ones are moving. I personally feel that altcoins have not had those movements yet. Many altcoins still have a move to come. If you've watched the videos I've put up on the second channel in particular, that the altcoin market still has a rally to come. Chainlink, in my opinion, leading the way with Solana, with Avalanche. AVAX is Avalanche, Avalanche is AVAX. But overall, the way that Bitcoin has moved in relation to altcoins, there's a massive difference here. The argument I think we have to start considering is Bitcoin now becoming centralized. Are ETFs going to start centralizing certain cryptocurrencies? Let me know what you guys think of that in the chat. Is it something that has crossed your mind yet? I know Chris might have an input on that one. A centralized Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin now a centralized market?
Yeah. So So, Chris, what's your thoughts on that? Chris is muted. Oh, his microphone's definitely not working.
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, I'm not sure because I wasn't really paying attention. I was trying to do half a dozen things all at the same time. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to come out with the truth. What was it that you were asking me? Sorry.
So it was more talking about, do we have to start considering that Bitcoin is becoming a centralized market due to, recent ongoings?
Well, I think it already is. I think more so, I guess, than it was already. And what I mean by this is it's centralized amongst the mining pools anyway. If you break it down and really sort of dig into the actual underlying data for the miners, it's very centralized. And then you've got the likes of BlackRock, JP Morgan, that before the Bitcoin spot ETF was approved, they were all getting massive amounts of exposure to the miners. So not only do they now have these Bitcoin spot ETFs, they also own pretty much the vast majority of shares in these mining companies as well, at least like the biggest ones. So yeah, it's very centralized. It's being taken over by Wall Street and traditional finance. Like, if people might not like to hear that, but that is actually what's happening right now. And it's almost like you should be careful what you wish for, because ultimately all of this goes completely against the ethos of what Bitcoin was created to do. But if you're already in Bitcoin and you've been in it for a while, at the end of the day, it's a selfish kind of approach to it, right? Like, when you sell an asset, you got to sell it to somebody, right? So they got to be willing to pay a higher price. They then got to find somebody to sell it to at a higher price, really, if they want to be successful in crypto. So yeah, it's one of those. It's everybody's what is it, dog eat dog world, I guess. So yeah, it's like you need. This has always been my argument with people that are like pro decentralization. And I think you need decentralization to a point, but you also, on the flip side of that, need centralization as well. So we need this to happen in order to bring in mainstream adoption. We need this to happen so the miners can mine for a profit, right? Because at the moment, if the price doesn't go up, then the miners can't actually mine at a profit either. So, it's got to go in that direction. And, this is what needs to happen in order
I always throw out that argument of, what if it doesn't? What if the price doesn't go up there?
Then it collapses.
It collapses, exactly. It's a huge problem. But I want to talk a little bit, actually, because you mentioned centralization and all that. The ETF is an interesting kind of point to this, right? Because it adds to the centralization issue for BTC. And a lot of people don't understand how these ETFs are working. I've been trying to talk about this as many times as I can, so that people can understand, because what was the last number, Chris? 7.7 billion, something like that?
It's now over 10 billion. So this is what a lot of people are not sort of realizing. Like, individually, when you are making a purchase, you're buying a share of Bitcoin, but the ETF, they are buying Bitcoin. So, if all the ETFs in the US, value wise of volume that they've got is 10 billion, they own 10 billion of Bitcoin. So, I've always kind of said in the approach to the approval for these Bitcoin spot ETFs that there was going to be this sell the news event, not because, it's going to be a dud or people aren't happy. There was always going to be a period of time where we had to wait for institutions, big family offices, companies, hedge funds to get all the various sign-offs that are required in order to flow into the Bitcoin spot ETF and allocate some of their capital to Bitcoin, right? Make some changes to all of that. So for us to do that, it's going to take time. There's a lot of sign-off that's required.
Yeah, and I think in time we will see a lot more institutions getting involved in Bitcoin. But it's got to be a part of their strategy. They've got to have to sign off, and sometimes it might not be until the next financial year for some of these institutions as well. And then the second question becomes: are they going to invest in an ETF, which is basically buying shares in the Bitcoin that is held by the ETF, or are they going to buy Bitcoin directly and own the asset and store the asset and all of that kind of stuff? Many of these institutions do use Coinbase custody as well, so they don't really have to worry too much about the ins and the outs of private keys and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, the ETFs are a very interesting piece because as Chris was saying, like 10 billion goes into the shares of the Bitcoin that is held. It's like a resetting of fractionalized Bitcoin. That's the easiest way of trying to articulate what's going on with the ETFs. Over time, over a long period of time, you'll see money flowing into Bitcoin because the ETF has to buy more Bitcoin to fractionalize it and to create more shares, to issue those shares and so forth. But it's going to take some time. That's just why we called the sell the news event when everyone was kind of hyping it up before. We saw the drop to 38,000, and we've recently seen a great rally to the upside, a little bit more than initially expected here at CEC, but it's doing well, and the most recent TAs are playing out beautifully, aren't they, JB?
They certainly are. But one question I kind of want to put out to everybody watching this, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this back, because we know many people do tend to watch this back. It's quite staggering how many people watch these back. Will you buy Ethereum at this point in the market, hoping that we're going to see a similar move for Ethereum upon Ethereum's ETF approval? Now, obviously, it looks highly likely we're going to see Ethereum's approval. I believe we may even see it next month at some of the rumored dates for it. But will you be buying Ethereum at this point on the basis that Bitcoin has moved up a fantastic amount, that Ethereum might do the same? I'd be very interested to know if that's maybe going to spur a lot of the community, viewers, whoever, if you're going to buy Ethereum, spot buy or long it on the basis that Bitcoin has moved up this much, so Ethereum's going to move up that much with exposure for ETFs. Excuse me. I have a thought behind this one that dumb money that are investing in ETFs are going to see Ethereum as, well, it's so much cheaper than Bitcoin, so I'm going to put my assets into Ethereum's ETF because it's so much cheaper. We know how dumb money, and it's a horrible phrase. I know we don't like to use the phrase dumb money, but it is the best way to articulate it. They are fickle. They look at numbers wrong. Let's be honest here. So yeah, it's pretty much what I want to know. Are you of the notion that Ethereum is going to do the same move as Bitcoin has just done due to the ETF launch?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be really interesting to see how everything kind of unfolds. But let us know in the live chat all your thoughts on the Ethereum spot ETFs and what you think the next spot ETF is going to be, because there's so much hype around these, whether it's going to be, XRP, Solana, Cardano, you can let me know in the comments below. I imagine it won't be Cardano because everyone hates Cardano, apparently.
I think we can also guarantee it won't be XRP. On that, I think it's actually quite a good one to cover off there. Obviously, there has been a lot of speculation, hype, rumors about an XRP ETF. I think we can categorically say that that will not happen until everything is over and done with the SEC. Again, that's something I've been covering off quite a lot on the second channel, that an XRP ETF would be fascinating, but the suppression from the SEC, that's not going to happen anytime soon, I do not feel. We may see a potential settlement soon, but with all the delays that are going on with XRP, it's obviously going to delay everything even further. There was obviously the speculation of the court dates, the meetings between the SEC and the Ripple Labs board. That is next month, actually. Now, it's actually middle of February. I've only just realized this. So that's actually next month when they have to have their face-to-face sit-down. It is a compulsory sit-down. Judge Torres obviously stating that one out. So yeah, an XRP ETF will not happen until we have settlement. As for the next ETF, it is fantastic. I would love to know what everybody feels the next ETF would be. I have a suspicion what it may be, But we'll maybe leave that till the end of the chat. That can maybe be the round out for today's video. Let's find out what everybody watching expects or anticipates the next ETF to be, and we can maybe give our thoughts at the end of the stream.
Indeed, it'll be very interesting to see everything unfold. But Chris, have you got any of the latest news of what's going on in the crypto space?
Yeah, have I got somewhere to share it?
Yeah, share it here.
How?
Hit the share button.
I can
Yeah,
see.
hit the share button at the bottom.
Yeah, 1 second.
Nothing like doing these things live from, I don't know, all over the place.
Let's go entire screen. Let's go this screen. Okay, now I've got screen. There we go.
Turn it on. There we go.
Cool beans. Like, been one of those days today. You know I'm going to get a call now, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is when I'm going to get an urgent phone call in a minute as soon as I start talking. But I want to talk about Cardano first. Somebody got a dog?
Yeah, sorry, I'll close the windows open.
All I can hear is dogs barking. Cool. What I want to talk about is Cardano. Do we think that it can reach $8? There's a lot of talk that we're going to see some consolidation until April, and we're going to see the price after April 2024 surge to approximately $8, according to this article. What's really interesting is the fact that they talk about the fact that, you know, there's a lot going on within the ecosystem and the infrastructure. And I think that it's an interesting topic to discuss amongst ourselves before we get into a lot of the news. So, you know, JB, what's your thoughts?
I mean, $8 most definitely a possibility. I think every single person that's here on this stream anticipates $8 ADA. Also, can see it getting there. I think $8 maybe a conservative target. You know, depending on the time frame as to when you expect to see an $8 ADA, that's, you know, debatable. But $8 is most certainly a target that I have in mind. I actually have a target past $8, but yeah, it's all down to timeframes, expectations, and such. But I do think $8 is very much, you know, in the pipeline for ADA.
Yeah, Nick, what about yourself?
Yeah, like I think the target wise for ADA, it is very much you know, between $5 and $12, right? That's kind of the area that most people are going to be quite comfortable with. Obviously, there's some targets that exceed this $20+ and all that. If we want to be really conservative, then yeah, we are talking basically between $5 and $12. So yeah, I'll align with 8. It's in a very comfortable position in the charts.
Yeah, it's fairly realistic. I feel. What 58 cent? What we now that we've had a bit of a move to the upside?
We are 55.65.
Yeah, so I think it's still really good gains. What's that? 17,000 plus percentage? Yeah, about that. What's really interesting though is you've got a lot of others talking about ADA and the fact that actually people are really bullish on it because big money whales, and I've talked about this several times on the channel, have been purchasing, but that they're having to pay the premium of it, unlike many other assets. Like if we were to say Solana, for example, Solana obviously has got lots of VC money in it. Cardano hasn't, so they're having to pay that premium for it, and this has got a lot of the Cardano community quite excited that, you know, they believe that they're in the race, if that makes sense. They're paying the same as the big money now to get in, and because of that, the price is holding up. I think that's really interesting. What's your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I kind of align to that, right? You don't have these big entities controlling the market, right? And this Solana is a clear example of it, right? The Solana VCs are really behind a lot of the marketing elements for Sol, and as to why you see so many influencers kind of really heavily pushing it. Either they are a VC that are heavily invested, or alternatively, VCs are basically paying them to kind of, you know, shill Sol. You don't have those scenarios with Cardano, and because Cardano's technology is kind of built with the future in mind, It's been slow to kind of get to where it's going, but that is actually a really attractive property for larger institutional level investment at a later stage. And so they're looking at it now with that kind of, that kind of prospect in the future of where it's going, and yeah, they are going to have to pay a premium price. That is a part of not believing in it early enough.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty obvious, and I think it's inevitable that there will be a Ethereum spot ETF. I think this is something that is going to come to fruition. But I'll put it out there. I think that other altcoins are going to follow. Once Bitcoin's successful, and it's already being labeled a success, Ethereum will get the green light. Position with altcoins right now, when from a regulatory perspective, XRP's in a really good position to be, having a spot ETF at some point. Could potentially be the next one, just because it's got that regulatory clarity as we record this now. Maybe that'll change upon a pill, I don't know. But at the moment it's already got that position that others are perhaps striving for, and perhaps others should have. I mean, Cardano probably you could argue is not a security based on its inception and where it currently stands with how decentralized it is. And you put comparisons with that and Ethereum. Well, is there a comparison? I don't know. I don't think there is. Do you?
Probably not. No, I
Probably
don't
not,
think
right?
you can compare the two.
I don't think it is. Apples and pears.
Yeah.
But the next thing that I want to talk about is crypto.com. They're saying that actually they've seen huge volume, and they're putting it down to their big sponsorship deals with the likes of Formula One and the UFC. They're saying that these really did pay off, and they've seen their user bases expand immensely. And I think this makes me really think about the projects and the sponsorships that they've got as well. We've seen VeChain with a UFC sponsorship, and I think they've done some remarkable things there with that as well, particularly with the experiences, getting the community involved and taking them to the UFC shows, all around the world. I think this is something that you don't tend to see with a lot of these companies. I mean, I don't see crypto.com taking the crypto community that are using their platform to these events, but maybe that's happening as well. I don't know, but I thought that was rather interesting. We got Ripple owned crypto custody firm Metaco CEO and head of product depart. Again, we always want to be keeping an eye on the movements of these big players in the space. So one that I just really wanted to just touch on. If we move on, we've got Bitcoin investors could double their money as crypto nears certainty to hit 100K in 2024.
It's so painful when you see that.
So the reason why I bring this up, right, because it wasn't that long ago that I highlighted that this is the sort of thing that we're going to start to see more and more. And like, this is because, the big players, they own these media outlets, and where, like a year, 2 years ago, everything was really, really negative. We are now seeing mainstream, like, I mean, The Express here in the UK, that's pretty mainstream, right? That's going to people that are not necessarily invested in cryptocurrency in the newspapers and stuff. This isn't something that we were seeing a year ago. Certainly not positive news. Certainly not suggesting that Bitcoin was going to hit 100K a near certainty. And it wasn't that long ago YouTubers were calling out 100K and getting ridiculed for it. Don't get me wrong, they were probably a little bit early, but it does make me think about like Cathie Wood, who personally I think is a fraud. If you go look, and it's just my personal opinion, if you go look at her results when she was at different hedge funds, they weren't any good. But she's been placed on this pedestal as some expert, calling for, what is it, a $1 million Bitcoin? Like, come on. She's getting her percent whichever way the market goes. Sometimes I kind of feel like some of these really renowned people in the space, these leaders who make money regardless of which way the market moves. Like scammers a strong word, maybe not scammers, but I think there are people there that could argue it that she is. Go research it if you think I'm talking out my ass. It's starting to really get on my nerves seeing her face plastered everywhere, alongside others. I won't mention any others, but yeah, it's my views on it. It's my opinion. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm right. Bitcoin settles around 48k, putting 91% of Bitcoin holders in profit. So look, the reason why I bring this up is we've seen a lot of inflows into exchanges. We know that the regular individual in the space is struggling financially now. We know that debts are at all-time high. We know savings are at a low. We know credit card debts are high. We know people are remortgaging. And although the media will have you believe the mortgage rates are coming down, which they are, they're still double the amount of interest that people are currently on. So when they circle off of those deals, they're having to pay double the amount of interest. Can they afford to do that? Probably not. Hence, we're seeing inflows. And with the Bitcoin price where it is today, I think people are going to be selling. So, not because they want to, and not because they want that 100% double their money scenario that we mentioned earlier, but because they have to. On-chain indicators suggest Bitcoin market is now high risk, according to Glassnode. I'm going to say that is pretty much highlighting what I've just mentioned to you as well. And then you've got Arthur Hayes, short-term bullish stance as Bitcoin will hit an all-time high this year. I don't know. Do either of you guys disagree with a Bitcoin all-time high this year?
No, I think a new all-time high this year is something, but it won't happen until after the halving.
Yeah, 80-something days.
I'm probably going to do a whole video on this tomorrow, because there's a lot of things that are different in Bitcoin history, right? We're rewriting Bitcoin history as we kind of speak, and as we kind of go through every single day. There's a lot of new things that have happened to Bitcoin that just simply didn't happen before. And so if we look at the history, we could say, well, Bitcoin doesn't go to a new all-time high until after the halving. Maybe this time is different. I'll throw it out there.
Yeah,
but I do think 2024 will be a new all-time high.
Yeah, I'm already saying this time's different, and I don't care whether people want to clip it, whatever. I honestly do believe that this time is different. I think it's different on many levels. I think, the length of it's going to be different. I think if we don't get a Fed pivot early, then it's going to be different. I think that the world is in a really tender place. I don't know if the right terminology to use, but it's just a slight incorrect move from somebody in the world at the moment could cause a big war, and potentially a world war and stuff like that. So yeah, this market at the moment is in a very odd kind of place, because we expect a Fed pivot. Everything we're seeing would line up with that. The Fed will have to pivot, and when they do, 100% of the time you see a crash. I do think that it'd be short-lived, but with that, what does Bitcoin do when that happens? Is this going to be different because we've got the Bitcoin spot ETF? There's all these unanswered questions with no indicators to say this is what we should be expecting. So interesting stuff. But I wanted to just talk a little bit more about Bitcoin. We've got Bitcoin logs biggest weekly gain since October as the S&P 500 tops 5K. Basically, what they're saying is the S&P actually, compared to Bitcoin, is actually looking expensive. To bonds is looking relatively expensive. So I think that, again, there's a lot going on in the space, and we should be monitoring everything that's happening, both in the S&P 500, the crypto market, and from the macro changes that we're seeing outside of those two as well. I think we need to be listening acutely to what's being said in governments around the world. So there we go. anything you guys want to add?
No, I'm just wondering, JB, do you want to kind of cover some of the altcoin market in relation to, we've been kind of like Bitcoin heavy in the stream, right? But obviously there are implications to the altcoin market when it comes to BTC.
Yep. So a couple of things before we do get into that. If you want to reference CoinMarketCap, they are saying 62 days until the Bitcoin halving. So make of that as you will. Into next couple of weeks as well, it's something I do think is quite vital to talk about here, and it's more of what's kind of going on in the macro landscape. The likes of employment changes and unemployment rates, they're all going on, but most importantly, I think to cover off here is the inflation rates. So over the last couple of periods, we have seen inflation rates decrease, but there's speculation that has came out, as I was reading an article earlier today, that the United Kingdom is expecting an increase of 0.2% for the inflation rate, something that's not anticipated. So yes, the UK, you can see that as a lagging indicator, but they are expecting an interest of inflation, something which is not expected. We were expecting a decrease and a continuation of. Then we go over to America, and they're expecting a decrease of 0.5%. That is the expected decrease of inflation. Well, once again, there's speculation there's going to be another increase. So I do think it is critical to be a bit tender with what's going on in this space. You guys should most likely know by now. I try to cover it as much as I can, talking about macro events and what's really going on. So it's just basically to be in tune with what's going on around and trying to get ahead of the game if we, want to articulate it in such a way. Let's bring over this one here. There we go. We're going to have a quick look at Matic in today's update. Now, this is obviously one we tend to keep to the second channel, covering on videos, and down in memberships.cheekycrypto.io, we cover these for altcoins. So for Polygon's Matic, we were tracking a bit of a corrective move to the downside, a 5-3-5 structure. And we have seen that fifth wave of this C wave here truncate on the 23rd of January at 69.13 cents. Then, of course, from there, we are looking for this move to the upside into this first highlighted area between 81.42 cents and that's 92.19 cents. And this one looks like it still has a little bit of legs to it. Of course, the structure within itself, we will be looking at a bit of a correction here, this A, B, and C structure. On the macro time frame, if we do take that 100% move over to the low we have here at 76.25 cents, we will just snap this onto the correct level. Well, we can see we will likely exceed this movement around about 92 cents with the higher level of 96.17 cent on the more macro time frame. But when we bring that down onto the here and the now, this is obviously content here that we have for the members down in Discord. Well, these structures are playing out, and this is an internal count. This fifth wave movement, we can see a very explosive move over the last few hours for many projects in the space. Obviously, Polygon's Matic here being no exception. 88 to around about 90 cent will be a fantastic push to the upside. And there may still be more in the tank if we were to really draw this one out. But that would simply be a wave 3 with a wave 4 and another push to the upside to come, all within this C wave. Then from there, we would likely see a bit of a cooling off. Now, we could be very speculative here and have a look at this as a bigger A, B, and C to the upside. We'll obviously monitor that as, the time kind of dictates and allows us to monitor these projects a little bit more accurately. Timing markets is something I will not try and do. It's a fool's game to time a market. But we can look at the structures and we can see that many of these altcoins have got so much more to give. Lots of content over on the second channel covering altcoins, obviously at memberships.cheekycrypto.io. We put out members videos. There's so many videos go out every week now, covering off the moves of altcoins, targeting these pushes to the upside. ADA video, that went out 3 hours ago now. ADA's looking very good, guys. It's probably something you really don't want to be missing out on. Chainlink is doing a fantastic move just now. So we will try and cover off altcoins as much as we can on these live streams.
Awesome stuff. So I think that's going to wrap up today's stream, Chris, unless you've got anything else you want to add. And of course, we'll be back again tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we're not answering any questions.
Oh, we can do, I guess. I was just looking at the time, but let's see what's going on in the questions. Let's see. I can't see terribly too many, to be honest. I don't know if it's just my side, but there's lots of different places around the world where people are. We can see here Scotland, Washington, Indonesia. We've got Poland. When Ford Focus? It's the prime question, right? we don't.
I
we
sold
don't
my
time the
Ford
market. It's a
Focus
fool's
about
game,
4
as
years
JB
ago.
just said.
Yeah, I always
When
I
VeChain
always used
under
to
2
have,
cent remarket.
like, is there a
Go
really
for it,
big
Chris. I
lag
think
or
my
something?
internet's
Yeah,
lagging.
Nick's got a lot of lag.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Let's have a quick look through here. What's going on in the rest of the chat? Let's see if Nick can sort his issues out. When Ford Focus, I sold mine's about 4 years ago. When student loan gone? Hoping. Hi from Inverness. Welcome in. When VeChain under 2 cent, there will be a VeChain video out this week over on the second channel. Be sure to check that one out. VeChain is looking very interesting just now. Make sure you're aware of all things going on with VeChain. It's looking, yeah, very spicy right now. They can hear us fine. When Moon, July, Echo. There is an echo in this room. I am trying to get it sorted. I've ordered 2 big foam pads that sit up in the roof here that condense the sound because this echo is driving me insane. When I do recordings, I can suppress it. On these lives, unfortunately, I cannot. Coincidence, your mum's house also? Well, yeah. Okay, I was there last night, but we'll not go into there. Yeah, no need for comments to that in the chat.
It's all right. I can easily
Yeah.
handle that just by hitting this little button here, and then that person's unable to communicate anymore. Done.
What's
It's like cutting out their
like
tongue.
like what is with the mum jokes?
It's
Listen,
just immature children, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm one of the last people to start those jokes with because I don't have sense. I'm not censored in the slightest. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
It's all good fun. Hit the like button, guys, as we wrap up this stream, and as you exit, we do help push the channel out, and we really do appreciate that very much so. So why not go ahead and smash that like button on the way out? Other than that, guys, thanks for joining us, and we will be back again for another live stream tomorrow. Join us this evening for some more video content, and join us in the Discord. Links are in the description down below. Let's start and continue conversations down there.